Alright, so my name is Xander Cosgrave, and this is Soph-box. I'm going to be talking about why I'm studying political philosophy and why I think it's so interesting and why everyone should do it. So political philosophy is the philosophy of, well, politics. It seems a bit self-explanatory. It's like why people act in certain ways when they get positions of power, why people interact in certain ways between these positions of power, how states interact with each other, how world leaders or princes and kings all interact with each other, and like the ideas behind why they interact that way, and you know what sort of mantras they have and why they did this and why they did that. And I think it's important to know because it's all about, like, I mean, that's world leaders and international relations. That's sort of stuff that happens all the time without most people knowing about it. So I think it's important to know about that all the time. And I think that it's interesting because, I mean, you do get to talk about like Machiavelli and Plato and everything from the earliest vicious, like, two guys hitting each other with sticks straight up to two guys hitting each other with nuclear weapons. And it just sort of, it does teach you a lot about how human interaction expands, I guess, as like more and more people get involved in the mix, how bureaucracy sort of appears out of nowhere and we're not sure why that happened, but we agree that it was all kind of useful, and how, you know, ideas like the Treaty of Westphalia and how we should all not murder each other as our method of diplomatic interaction. Instead, we'll talk it out, unless you're, you know, X religion or that color or something, and how that all changed and developed over hundreds of years. Because, like, political philosophy is like equally, you need to know how people interact nowadays, how international relations works, and all that cool jazz, but you also need to know how that's happened for the past thousands of years of recorded history. Like, why did the Israelites hate everyone? Because they just did. They were douchebags. Why did the Greeks like take over for what was was actually quite a short time, and then ended up getting bitch slapped around for the next couple thousand years? Why was Rome so powerful, or why was and how they sort of brought people into their empire rather than just crushing them under their iron sandals? They actually taught people how this all worked together and took people who were useful from the Germanic tribes and stuff and brought them in and made them useful for the empire. And then you go on to like the medieval, like Machiavelli and the Renaissance and the Borgias and the people who were basically Game of Thrones in Italy, and you're there like watching this sort of win or die mentality, and even if you die you might have won for a couple seconds, so that's okay too. And the end, like things like the end justifies the means, and how that mentality comes along. And then the more developed ideas of realism and liberalism as the two key things that affect international relations, and that this is basically turning into like a 10-minute lecture on 101 political philosophy. But yeah, so political philosophy is awesome, and everyone should study it because it's important to know how like states and world leaders interact with each other. And also, it's really cool because it's watching people lie and cheat and stab their way to power, and it's like House of Cards at Game of Thrones, and it's fantastic.